It's August 2024 and I'm the only passenger getting off at Wales's least used station to start my journey through Eryri. For my exploration of Snowdonia, I've based myself in the village of Dolgarrog, nestled by the banks of the Conwy River in the shadow of the foothills of Snowdon. The village was established around 1200, only to suffer, along with other villages of the lower Conwy Valley, the devastation of the Black Death just 150 years later, with large numbers killed by the disease and many more leaving their lands or hiding, unable to pay the excessive taxes imposed on the Welsh by the English kings and their officers. The industrialisation of the village began in the 18th century with a flour mill, followed by a woolen mill, and by the middle of the 19th century a sawmill that created railway sleepers that helped to fuel the boom in railway building from 1845 onwards. From the end of the 19th century there are plans to open an aluminium works in the village, powered by hydroelectricity from water reservoirs in the mountains. The first part of the works opened in 1907, with a rolling mill added in 1916. In 1924 the site opened its own hydroelectric plant. The plant went through various roles before finally closing in 2007 and being demolished in 2009. In 2015, the world's first commercial artificial surfing lake was opened on the site. Sadly, the park closed in 2023 following mechanical failures in 2022 that stopped the waves. However, part of the park included the construction of a 106-room Hilton Garden Inn hotel, my accommodation for the stay, which was still fully booked in 2024, along with an adventure park housing assault courses, high ropes and a zip line. Since 2001, the village has been home to the world's largest hedge maze, the Conwy Valley Maze, covering over 2 acres of land on the southern edge of the village. The maze is dotted with statues and art installations, as well as several larger garden areas that you're encouraged to explore and seek out each dead end and its artwork. Eventually, after nearly an hour of exploring, I finally made it to the centre of the maze. There's a quick escape route back round to the entrance kiosk via Japanese garden, or you could try unsolving the maze in reverse. Moving up the valley, past the town of Llanberis, you reach Betws-y-Coed, one of the transport hubs and popular visitor destinations within Eryri. The town's name means prayer house in the wood, with the first recording of the name being in 1254. Betws sits at the point where the rivers Llugri and Rhaeadr join the Conwy. The location attracted a Celtic Christian community who founded a monastery in the late 6th century, with the village developing around the site over the following centuries. The area expanded with the opening of lead mines during the medieval period. With the Act of Union of 1800 forcing Ireland into the United Kingdom, better transport links between the two countries were proposed, with Holyhead on the northwestern coast of Wales becoming an important port for the link, and the need to build a good quality road between it and London, nowadays the A5, vital to that link. Surveyors decided that the best route passed through the heart of Betws-y-Coed. Engineer Thomas Telford helped to build the route, including the Waterloo Bridge in the village. The opening of route turned Betws into a major mail coach stop on the route from London to Dublin, with stops from Corwin to the east and Capel-Curragh to the west. At the same time, the local routes to Blaenau and Clonlwst and onto Conwy were heavily improved. In 1866, the railway station opened as an extension of Llanberis on the Conwy Valley line. Boosted by the railway, the village's population grew to 500, a population that has hovered around ever since, though that number swelled many times over with each day's influx of tourists, from the casual sightseer to the hardened hikers and bikers. The station, along with still receiving up to 6 trains a day in each direction, is home to the Conwy Valley Railway Museum, which, along with various railway artefacts on display in the small museum, also houses an extension 7¼ miniature railway, which runs for about a mile in a series of loops around the site. Betws is a popular place for walkers, with a long-distance Snowdonia Slate trail passing through the village on its 83-mile circular route around northern Snowdonia. There are also shorter circular routes from the village. I opted to take one that included parts of Slate Trail and takes you up past several waterfalls and the Ugly House before returning you back down to the village in about 4 to 5 hours. Starting from the falls close to the centre of the village, the walk starts the gentle wander alongside the Ewynnol. About a mile into the walk, you reach the Miners' Bridge. This is a wooden ladder bridge that crosses over a river by another set of falls. The views from the bridge are breathtaking, which is a bit of a problem as you'll need all the breath you've got, as this point marks the start of the steepest part of the walk. Over the next mile or so, the path climbs up 228 foot, with a section coming up from the Miners' Bridge being the steepest, before levelling off into a much gentler climb through the trees, accompanied by mountain streams. And then you reach the highlight of the walk, the magnificent Swallow Falls. On the south bank of the river, you can reach the falls by bus and then pay an entrance fee to visit a very busy viewing platform. Your reward for the climb up the north bank of the river is a free view from a viewing platform across the falls, either totally by yourself or with only 1 or 2 other people. The name of the falls derives from a large rock that separates the flow of the river into 2 streams, looking like a swallow's tail. In 1913, the falls were given to the local council by the then landowner, the second Lord Ancaster. The council implemented a visitor's charge for accessing the viewing platform on the southern bank of the river, which was used to pay off the debts incurred by the installation of water and electricity supplies in the village. Once the debt was paid off, the visitor's fee was retained and used by the village to subsidise its residents' water and electricity rates, something that continued right up until the reorganisation of local government in 1974. From the falls, a short walk further on up the river takes you to the A5 bridge over the river, and located next door, the Ugly House. The Ugly House is an example of a one-night house. According to old customs, if someone could build 4 walls between sunset and dawn and have smoke coming out the chimney by morning, they had a right to the building and the land around it, obtained by throwing an axe to the 4 corners and claiming the land between those 4 points. The house itself has been updated over the centuries, including being repaired and used by labourers working on the A5 road when it was being constructed. The house was occupied until the 1960s, but then fell into disrepair. It was bought by the Snowdonia Association in 1988 and repaired by volunteers. More importantly for the walker, it's now home to a verified tea room and a welcome break at the midpoint of the walk before either retracing your steps or by a 3-mile stomp back down the pavement on the A5 road back into Betws on the south bank. Possibly even more besieged by tourists than Betws-y-Coed is the village of Llanberis. Located at the foot of Eryri, Snowdon, and between two lakes, Dolgarrog and Peris, the village is one of the main starting points for ascent up Wales' highest mountain, and arguably the most climbable of Great Britain's three peaks. Particularly if the weather's good and you can cheat by taking the mountain railway all the way to the summit. The village originally grew up around the Dolgarrog quarry, and the slate industry played a major role in the economy of the village, though today that's been eclipsed by outdoor tourism. Located on a rocky outcrop above the Llanberis are the ruins of the 13th century Dolbadarn Castle. There is evidence for a fort on this site since at least the 6th century, but the current structure dates to around 1220 when it was built by Llywelyn ap Iorwerth, Llywelyn the Great, to protect the road through Llanberis from the north coast of Wales to the heart of Snowdonia. In the 1250s, Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, usually considered the last Welsh ruler of the country before King Edward I forced English rule on Wales, imprisoned his brother Owen ap Gruffydd in the castle for around 20 years. During the years of war against Edward I of England, the castle was in the care of Llywelyn's other brother, Dafydd ap Gruffydd. However, after the killing of Llywelyn on the 11th of December 1282, the castle was captured by the army of the Earl of Pembroke. Dafydd was able to flee to the mountains, but a few months later he was caught and was brutally executed by the English in Shrewsbury with a full set of hanging, disemboweling and quartering. Following the castle's capture, its woodwork was stripped by Edward to help build Carnarvon Castle. It's believed that during Owen Glendower's rebellion in the early 15th century, the castle was used to keep prisoners in. Today, the only surviving structure on the site is the round central tower keep, which once consisted of 3 floors. Today, the tower is 48 feet high, and the walls are up to 8 feet thick. Not much of the rest of the castle remains, other than the foundations of outer walls, towers, and a hall. The Llanberis Pass continues to be a vital link in Eryri, taking the main road up and over the Penny Pass, between the mountain range of Glyderau and Eryri. Despite the typical Snowdon weather of switching between pounding rain and brilliant sunshine, exacerbated by it being a bank holiday weekend, you can still see down the pass from its peak and onto the roads heading north to meet the A5 at Capel and south towards the coast at Porthmadog. Whilst somewhere up in that murk of mountain peaks and a lot of very wet hikers. Before reaching Porthmadog, that southbound road passes through the small village of Beddgelert. Standing at the confluence of the Glaslyn and Colwyn rivers, the village is likely to date back to the 8th century, though the earliest record of the village name is in a document from 1258. It's likely the village is named for an early Christian missionary named Celot, who settled here early in the 8th century, though the folk tale for the name of the town comes from the faithful hound Gelert. Gelert was a wolfhound owned by Llywelyn ap Iorwerth. On returning from hunting, Llywelyn finds his baby missing, the cradle overturned, and Gelert with a blood-smeared mouth. Believing the dog had killed and eaten the child, Llywelyn draws his sword and kills Gelert. After the dog's dying yelp, Llywelyn hears the cries of the baby, unharmed, coming from under the cradle, along with a dead wolf, which had attempted to attack the baby and had been killed by Gelert. Overcome with remorse, Llywelyn buries the dog with great ceremony. A raised mound on the edge of the village is called Gelert's grave. The fact it was built by an 18th century landlord of the Goat Hotel as a way of encouraging tourism puts a slight hole in the legend. Just outside the village is the Glaslyn Gorge, a narrow rocky gorge the river tumbles down in a very picturesque manner, perhaps best seen from the carriage of a Welsh Highland Railway train. The first incarnation of Beddgelert station was opened in 1922 and only lasted 14 years before the station and line were closed as a financial disaster. The lack of business from the slate trade and much lower tourist numbers than expected forced the original Welsh Highland Railway into receivership and eventual closure in 1937. The history of reopening of a railway is complex, involving multiple competing organisations with similar names, but in 2009 the station at Beddgelert reopened as the southern terminus of the line from Carnarvon. Further extensions in 2009, 10 and 11 took the line all the way back down to Porthmadog with the connection with the Festiniog Railway. By 2024, the second incarnation railway has lasted longer than the original. The Snowdon Sherpa bus service operates across the Eryri with buses linking Bangor, Carnarvon, Betws-y-Coed and Porthmadog, with major interchange points at Llanberis, Penny Pass and Beddgelert. Dolgarrog is on the Conwy Valley line, which runs between Llandudno and Llandudno Junction to Llanwst, Betws-y-Coed and Blaenau Festiniog. There are typically 6 Transport for Wales services a day in each direction Monday to Saturday and 4 on a Sunday all year round. Dolgarrog station is about a mile's walk from the village. The number 19 bus runs regularly Monday to Saturday and 4 times on Sunday from Llandudno to Conwy and down the west bank of the River Conwy, passing through the centre of Dolgarrog and onto Llanwst and Betws-y-Coed. Bangor and Llandudno Junction sit on the North Wales main line, with regular services provided by Transport for Wales and Avanti West Coast, west towards Holyhead for connections to ferry services to Dublin, and east towards Manchester Airport in 2 hours 20, Birmingham International and London in just over 3 hours, and Cardiff in around 4 hours. Direct train connections make Manchester the UK's 3rd busiest airport and Birmingham the UK's 7th busiest, the most useful airports for reaching North Wales.